No, it's so hard to do what you really, really desperately want in life. It's so much easier just to do you don't care either way about.
Wow.
Nobody saw this coming, live, on air. Cate Blanchett didn't just throw shade, she detonated a bomb. With millions watching, she exposed Blake Lively in a way that left everyone at Chanel squirming. No script, no filter, just raw truth that turned the fashion world upside down. The silence is over. The legacy war has begun. And for Blake, this might actually be the end.
Being attractive doesn't preclude being intelligent.
For over a decade, Cate Blanchett was Chanel, not just a face, not just a brand ambassador. She was the embodiment of class, creativity, and credibility. An Oscar-winning icon whose partnership with the fashion house ran deeper than red carpets and perfume ads. She wasn't hired for hype, she was chosen for substance. In 2020, while most celebrities were jumping on viral TikToks, Cate was quietly co-creating a black and white silent film for Chanel with her husband, playwright Andrew Upton. It was art. It was cinema. It was a legacy moment, a love letter to the brand, but then came Blake. Suddenly, the narrative shifted, fast. Chanel dropped the film, scrapped the campaign, and within months, Blake Lively, Instagram queen, Met Gala darling, Hollywood's PR machine in heels, was the new face. Not a collaborator, not an auteur, just buzz, just clicks, just strategy. Was it a rebrand or a betrayal? Cate's dignified silence said everything until now, because Cate didn't just lose a contract, she lost a decade-long artistic relationship. And insiders say she was blindsided. There was no warning, no conversation, just a cold corporate pivot toward youth, visibility, and viral moments. And behind the scenes, whispers of resentment that Blake used her influence, that her team lobbied hard to edge Cate out and plant her in. The fashion world may have moved on, but Cate didn't forget. And when she finally broke her silence, live, she made sure the world knew this wasn't just business. It was personal.
Cate Blanchett, what is your moral compass? Where does kindness and humanity sit in a brutal world? Because those are important questions to ask right now.
In my vagina.
It was supposed to be Cate Blanchett's masterwork, a bold, artistic campaign years in the making. The scripts were finalized, the film crew was booked. Her husband, Andrew Upton, had poured his soul into the concept. This wasn't a perfume ad, this was cinema, but just 2 weeks before the cameras rolled, Cate got the email. It wasn't even a call. No meeting, no discussion, just a cold, sterile line in corporate lingo. Creative alignment is no longer in place. Translation, you're out, and we're not explaining why.
Well, my husband, Andrew Upton and I ran the Sydney Theatre Company he ran it for 10 years almost, and this is the culmination, this is the last play he programmed.
Cate was blindsided. This was Chanel, a brand that prided itself on loyalty and legacy, a brand she had stood by for years. But overnight, her entire vision, her entire role was erased. Silently, brutally, and in her place, Blake Lively. Yes, Blake. The same campaign, the same concept, just repackaged for virality. The high art silent film, scrapped. The moody, cerebral vibe, gone. Blake came in all glam and gloss, ready for the reels and TikTok cuts. No trace of Cate, no mention, no credit. It was a surgical replacement, clean and quiet. But don't let the silence fool you. Behind the scenes, Cate was livid, and rightfully so. This wasn't a scheduling conflict or a creative shift. It was a calculated move. Insiders say Blake's team had been circling the campaign for months, whispering promises of social media engagement, youthful energy, and press buzz. The second Chanel bit, Cate was cut loose like dead weight, and she wasn't even given the decency of a phone call. What was once a collaboration turned into a coup. And Cate? She was done playing nice. What happened next wasn't just a rebrand, it was a cultural erasure. Cate Blanchett's vision wasn't updated, it was obliterated. Her silent film, gone. Her artistic voice, muted. In its place, a glossy, overproduced campaign drenched in soft focus lighting, meaningless buzzwords, and the kind of faux feminist Instagram captions that sound empowering until you realize they say absolutely nothing. Chanel didn't just swap faces, they torched the narrative Cate had built and handed the ashes to Blake Lively. Blake's version wasn't cinematic, it was strategic. Every shot, every frame screamed product placement. Chanel was no longer whispering elegance, it was screaming, "Buy this," in block letters. And at the center of it, Blake, posing, smiling, hashtagging. It wasn't art. It was marketing cosplay, the silent film, designed to challenge convention, replaced by empty slogans like "power is confidence" and "every woman is her own muse." Sound familiar? That's because it was ripped straight from the influencer playbook. Cate had spent years nurturing a brand collaboration rooted in storytelling. Blake turned it into a Netflix chic ad for perfume, fashion, and wait for it, her own wellness brand. That's right, Blake didn't just step into Cate's shoes, she brought her own empire with her. The campaign was now a Frankenstein hybrid. Par Chanel, par streaming service, par self-promotion. A corporate ménage à trois. The lines between art, branding, and influencer culture blurred until nothing was left but Blake's face and a QR code. This wasn't collaboration, it was colonization. Cate's voice, silenced. Her film, canceled. Her legacy, whitewashed with filters and market analytics. And Chanel? They didn't flinch. It was the kind of night meant to celebrate elegance. But behind the velvet curtains, it was anything but. Picture this. A candlelit dinner at a lavish French chateau hosted by Chanel, draped in silk and champagne. At one table, Cate Blanchett, the woman who had carried the brand's artistic soul for over a decade, sitting silent, dignified, eyes forward. Just 2 tables away, Blake lively, laughing, glowing, center of attention, the new face. But then it happened, the moment that turned a fashion dinner into a funeral for legacy. Blake, allegedly sipping her second glass of Bordeaux, leaned in and mocked the original campaign Cate and her husband Andrew had poured their hearts into. "It felt a little outdated," she said with a smirk, brushing off a black and white silent film as if it were an old VHS tape gathering dust. People laughed, and then came the real dagger. Someone at the table chimed in, "Legacy doesn't really sell to Gen Z anyway." Let that sink in. Not only was Cate's vision discarded, it was mocked in public, within earshot, while she was forced to sit there and pretend not to hear. Her husband's film, his writing, his creative, fingerprints, dismissed as irrelevant background noise. Cate, always poised, didn't flinch. No eye roll, no reaction. But sources say she heard everything. It wasn't just disrespectful, it was strategic. This wasn't about fashion, it was about rewriting the narrative right in front of the person who wrote the original script. Blake wasn't just stepping into the spotlight. She was burying the past with a smile. And Chanel, they watched it unfold with silver spoons in hand. Cate didn't clap back. She didn't cry. She watched. And that might have been more terrifying than any outburst. Because when Cate Blanchett goes quiet, you know the storm is coming. April 16th, 2023. A day that started with a whisper and ended with a digital explosion. A well-respected British fashion magazine, known for its glossy diplomacy, accidentally published a bombshell, not a rumor, not a leak. A full article detailing Cate Blanchett's original campaign concept in all its artistic depth. It named names. It listed dates. And most importantly, it credited Andrew Upton, Cate's husband, as the original writer behind the entire cinematic vision. The article read like a love letter to the scrapped campaign, describing its raw emotional intent, its silent film format, and even its scheduled production timeline. The problem? That campaign never saw the light of day. Instead, Blake Lively's Amos, hyper-branded, influencer-polished version had taken its place. So what was this article doing, live on a major media outlet, confirming that the entire Blake-led campaign wasn't an evolution, but a total creative erasure? It revealed that the change had nothing to do with direction or alignment. It was a brutal, silent coup, the kind that doesn't get acknowledged in press releases. Within hours, the article vanished. Pulled, deleted, no explanation, just a vague 404 page where truth once lived. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots flooded Reddit. TikTokers dissected it frame by frame. Fashion Twitter turned feral. The receipts were everywhere. Timeline comparisons, side-by-sides, even leaked internal emails. The leak confirmed what many had suspected: Cate wasn't eased out. She was deleted, and suddenly, this wasn't about fashion anymore. It was about betrayal, censorship, and a powerful woman being quietly replaced. Until fate, or maybe karma, let the truth slip out. And that accidental leak, it set the stage for Cate's very intentional response. Live on air. The internet doesn't just watch, it investigates. And once the leak dropped, the online rebellion ignited like wildfire. Reddit sleuths, fashion archivists, and TikTok editors got to work. Within hours, side-by-side comparisons of Cate Blanchett's original campaign treatment and Blake Lively's glossy final version were circulating like courtroom evidence. months. The results? Devastating. Same phrasing, same scenes, same tone, even. The same closing line, just recited by a different voice, with Blake's face front and center. What Chanel and Netflix had called a refresh suddenly looked a lot more like a copy-paste job with celebrity frosting, a now infamous Reddit. Post titled, "This is not a rebrand, it's a replacement," exploded, pulling 14,000 upvotes in just 6 hours. One top comment read, "This isn't creative direction, it's identity theft with a PR budget." TikTok went nuclear. A haunting, slow-cut edit titled, "This is how you rewrite someone else's legacy," layered Cate's original storyboard. Audio with visuals from Blake's final campaign. It hit over 2 million views in 48 hours, turning the quiet betrayal into a global spectacle. What had been a silent industry maneuver was now a digital riot. Comment sections lit up with rage. People called out the erasure. Some labeled it Hollywood cannibalism. Others said it was a brutal metaphor for how older women, no matter how iconic, are discarded for trendier faces the moment a new demographic becomes profitable. This wasn't just Cate versus Blake anymore. It was legacy versus branding, art versus algorithm, substance versus spectacle, and as the public picked sides, Cate Blanchett remained silent, but not for long.
And what people don't realize about Chekhov is it's funny.
It's a comedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cherry Orchard, which is his most, well-known play, probably.
Cate Blanchett didn't go on a podcast. She didn't post a Notes app apology. She didn't even name names. Instead, she did something infinitely more powerful and infinitely more brutal. In June 2023, Cate and her husband, Andrew Upton, released a play at the Sydney Theatre Company, quietly, without press buzz or red carpet fanfare. Its title, Lines That Weren't Meant to Be Read, already poetic, already suspicious. But when the curtains rose, it became clear. This was no random piece of fiction. The story followed a woman, an aging creative powerhouse, who slowly realizes her life's work is being appropriated by a younger, shinier rival. One who not only takes her story, but convinces the world it was never hers to begin with. Sound familiar? Then came the line. The one that would break the internet. The worst part isn't that you took it, it's that you convinced them it was always yours. The theater fell into a silence so deep it practically shook. But TikTok didn't stay quiet. A grainy, phone-recorded clip of that exact moment went viral in less than 12 hours, spreading across platforms like wildfire. Tumblr tagged it as Cate's quiet revenge. Twitter, now X, lit up with threads dissecting every line of the play. Instagram Reels repackaged it with slow zooms and melancholy music. And fashion TikTok dubbed it the classiest takedown in celebrity history. Commenters said it felt less like acting and more like confession. Like Cate wasn't playing a character, she was the character. And the message was loud and clear. Cate Blanchett hadn't just been replaced, she'd been erased. But instead of fighting fire with fire, she let the art speak. And it screamed. Suddenly, what once looked like a silent exit now looked like a strategy. The moment the original article resurfaced and Cate's play detonated across the internet, Chanel hit the panic button, and hard. It was no longer just a PR hiccup. It was a full-blown reputational wildfire. Suddenly, metadata from the leaked magazine article began disappearing systematically. Cached Google versions? Gone. Third-party archives? Erased. Entire web pages were being scrubbed like they never existed. Journalists who reached out for clarification were met with eerie silence or vague no comments. The cleanup wasn't subtle, it was surgical. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's team sprang into full-on distraction mode. Heavily curated Instagram carousels, family-friendly red carpet moments, podcast interviews packed with buzzwords like empowerment and authenticity. But none of it stuck, because the internet wasn't buying the glitter anymore. It was watching the disappearance, and it was loud. People started noticing that Chanel wasn't denying Cate's story. They weren't addressing it. They weren't defending Blake. They were doing the worst thing you can do in a scandal built on erasure. They stayed silent, and that silence said everything. No statement, no apology, not even a vague nod to the original campaign's inspiration. It became painfully clear that this wasn't a coincidence. It was a coordinated overwrite of Cate Blanchett's legacy, right down to the digital fingerprints. Fashion. Insiders whispered that Chanel had fumbled the most graceful collaborator they ever had. Twitter turned the scandal into a hashtag, #CateGate. TikTok users began reposting Chanel ads with glitched out edits and the caption, "This was never hers." The message was clear. Chanel wasn't just cleaning up a mess, they were pretending. The mess never happened, but the internet had already seen it, and screenshots don't disappear. Then came the email. And if Chanel's silence was gasoline, this was the match. On July 10th, 2023, a leak hit the internet like a thunderclap. a screenshot from Blake Lively's own PR team, posted to a private Discord server frequented by marketing professionals and gossip sleuths. It wasn't speculation. It wasn't hearsay. It was proof. The email outlined Blake's official messaging strategy surrounding the Chanel campaign controversy. The goal? Reframe the narrative as a creative reclamation. Those two words lit the internet on fire. Creative reclamation was supposed to sound visionary, something empowering, bold, even feminist. But to the public, it read like corporate speak for, we stole someone else's work and made it sound noble. Within hours, it backfired spectacularly. Twitter and TikTok users turned it into a punchline. Memes exploded overnight. Chanel perfume bottles labeled Reclaim No. 5, fake campaign slogans like festive reclamation and corporate alignment therapy, and Photoshop edits of Blake standing in front of Cate's old work with captions like, "This is mine now." Instagram was worse. Influencers and fashion insiders who had once supported the campaign began quietly archiving their posts, removing tags, or dropping cryptic comments like, "This aged like milk." Even Tumblr, known for its savage media commentary, revived the now viral line from Cate's play, pairing it with Blake's PR phrase in side-by-side screenshots. One post read, "It's not creative reclamation, it's legacy theft in designer heels." The backlash wasn't just brutal, it was relentless. The term creative reclamation became internet shorthand for performative branding, when corporations try to sugarcoat unethical decisions with faux progressive language. And worst of all, for Blake, the leak confirmed that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a strategy. By mid-July 2023, the House of Mirrors collapsed. The image of Blake Lively as a graceful, visionary creative, a woman who reinvented fashion campaigns with a fresh, empowering lens, was in shambles. The internet wasn't just skeptical anymore, it was feral. Every thread, every TikTok breakdown, every fashion YouTuber analysis was now laser-focused on connecting the dots. The sudden campaign switch, the creative alignment email to Cate, the vanishing article, the devastating play, and the now infamous creative reclamation memo. This wasn't random drama. It was orchestrated erasure. Reddit was ruthless. Threads with headlines like, "Cate was set up from day one," and "This isn't just PR, it's theft," dominated our pop culture. TikTok creators pulled frame by frame comparisons of Cate's original concept and Blake's glossy version, highlighting eerie similarities. Same mood boards, same dialogue fragments, even identical camera angles. Viewers weren't seeing reinvention, they were seeing replication, and people were done pretending it was coincidence. Blake's brand, once seen as effortless and authentic, now looked strategic, even performative. Fashion Twitter declared, "It a masterclass in rebranding gone wrong," and Blake's silence, it no longer read as classy, it read as calculated. Meanwhile, Cate Blanchett said nothing. She didn't clap back. She didn't post cryptic quotes. She didn't need to. Her words had already been spoken, on stage, through art, in a role that no one doubted was autobiographical. The line echoed across social media like a haunting refrain. The worst part isn't that you took it, it's that you convinced them it was always yours. She didn't break character. She broke the illusion, and the world finally saw who was really writing the story. So let's recap. Cate Blanchett builds a legacy. Blake Lively walks in, Chanel hits. Delete. And the internet does what it does best, uncovers the whole thing. A campaign hijacked, a vision erased, and a woman silenced. Until she turns silence into the loudest statement of all. But here's the real question. Was Blake ever the mastermind, or just the perfect face for someone else's plan? And if Chanel can erase Cate Blanchett, who's next? Hit subscribe, because in our next video, we're diving into what really happened between Blake and Florence Pugh, and why it's way messier than anyone's admitting.